If someone talked to you the way you talk to yourself, you probably would have cut them out of your life years ago. Think about it. That person who never notices what you do right, who finds the mistake before the achievement, who reminds you of something embarrassing you did 3 years ago, while completely forgetting everything you've done well since then. You wouldn't tolerate that person for long. But this critic is different, because it lives inside your head. And somehow, you gave it unlimited access. More than 2,000 years ago, the Roman philosopher Seneca understood this problem remarkably well, and his answer wasn't, "Just be nicer to yourself." It was much more demanding. Seneca believed you should examine yourself honestly, but he also understood something we still struggle with today. Self-reflection should teach you something. It should not become a permanent trial. And once you understand that difference, you may realize how long you've been punishing yourself for things you've already learned from. Think about your last mistake. Maybe you sent the wrong text, stayed quiet in a meeting when you wanted to speak, lost your temper, or said something years ago that your brain randomly brings back while you're driving or right before you fall asleep. Now ask yourself, how much time did you spend thinking about that mistake compared to something you did well? That same week, most people notice something uncomfortable. We remember failures with incredible clarity. Success disappears quickly. You can receive 10 compliments and spend the entire evening thinking about one criticism. Psychologists call this the negativity bias. Our brains naturally give negative experiences more attention than positive ones. From a survival perspective, that made sense. Thousands of years ago, remembering something dangerous could keep you alive. Your brain didn't evolve primarily to make you confident. It evolved to notice threats. The problem is that today, that same system often turns against you. There's no predator, no immediate danger. It's just you lying in bed at midnight thinking, "Why did I say that?" Seneca had an interesting habit. At the end of each day, he would review his behavior. What did I do wrong? Where did I lose control? What could I improve? But here's the important part. He wasn't reviewing his day to punish himself. He was looking for information. Imagine a judge examining a case. The evidence is reviewed, a decision is made. The case is closed. That's useful. Now imagine the judge reopening the exact same case every night. For 10 years, no new evidence, no new decision, just the same trial. At that point, it's no longer justice. It's imprisonment. And that's exactly what many people do to themselves. They make a mistake, they understand it. Maybe they apologize. Maybe they change. But the internal trial never ends. This is where you need to separate two very different things: self-discipline and self-attack. Self-discipline says, "That didn't go well. What can I change?" Self-attack says, "I'm an idiot. I always ruin everything." One focuses on behavior, the other attacks identity. One produces a lesson, the other produces shame. So here's a simple question. When that critical voice appears, ask, "Is this thought helping me do something better next time?" If the answer is yes, listen to it. There's probably something useful there. But if it's only making you feel terrible about something you can no longer change, that's not discipline, that's punishment. And there's another reason that voice can feel so powerful. Sometimes, it didn't originally belong to you. Maybe it sounds like a demanding parent, a teacher who only noticed mistakes, a coach who made failure feel unacceptable, or an environment where success was expected. But mistakes received immediate attention. Children absorb patterns. Eventually, an external voice can become internal. At first, they're disappointed in me. Years later, I'm disappointed in myself. At first, that's not good enough. Eventually, I'm not good enough. The original person may be gone. But you memorize the script, and now you perform both roles, the critic and the person being criticized. That's why some thoughts feel like absolute truth when they're actually learned habits. And this is where Stoic philosophy becomes useful. The Stoics repeatedly asked one practical question: what is still under my control? Something you said yesterday? Not anymore. The decision you regret from 5 years ago? Gone. The mistake you made this morning? Already happened. But what you do with what you learned, that still belongs to you. So, if your inner critic isn't helping you decide what to do next, what purpose is it serving? Picture two people making the exact same mistake during an important meeting. The first goes home and thinks, I wasn't prepared. Next time I'll organize my thoughts before I speak. They feel embarrassed, but they learn. The second thinks, I'm terrible at this. Everyone probably thinks I'm incompetent. Same mistake, completely different result. One turned failure into information, the other turned failure into identity. And that's why constant self-criticism can actually make you worse. You become afraid to speak, afraid to take risks, afraid to fail. Eventually, the voice you believed was pushing you forward starts making your world smaller. Seneca's approach was different. Look at the mistake. Don't hide from it. Don't make excuses. Take the lesson, then move. Because there's a point where reflection becomes rumination. You're no longer learning anything new. You're simply replaying the same pain. So ask yourself, what new information am I getting by thinking about this again? If the answer is nothing, then you're not solving the problem anymore. You're rehearsing it. Maybe you believe being hard on yourself is what keeps you successful. You might think, if I stop criticizing myself, I'll become lazy. But imagine managing an employee by constantly telling them, you're never good enough. They might work harder for a while. Eventually, they'll become anxious, exhausted, and terrified of making mistakes. Why would your own mind respond differently? High standards aren't the problem. The question is whether those standards guide you, or simply remind you why you're never enough. So the next time your inner critic brings up something you regret, don't immediately fight it. Ask it, what exactly are you trying to teach me? Maybe the answer is, prepare better. Useful, apologize. Useful, don't repeat that behavior. Good. But if the answer is simply, I want you to feel bad again, then you don't have to keep listening. You've already paid that bill. Tonight, if your mind brings back something you regret, ask 3 questions. What did I do wrong? What can I still repair? What will I do differently next time? Then, close the case. Not because the mistake didn't matter, but because you already took the only thing that still matters from it. The lesson. Maybe that's what Seneca understood. The goal was never to become perfect. The goal was to improve, without becoming your own worst enemy. So the next time that voice brings up something you did years ago, ask, is there anything left for me to learn here? If there is, learn it. If there's something you can repair it. And if you've already done both, close the file. You've spent enough time in the courtroom. If this sounds familiar, leave one word in the comments, judge. And if this changed the way you think about the voice inside your head, hit like and subscribe. Because in the next video, we're going after another invisible pattern, one you may have been repeating for years without realizing it. I'll see you in the next one.